Hi, everybody. So good to be back. All right, we've got some good questions this week. Actually, some really interesting stuff to talk about. Some stuff that I think is just kind of becoming more and more popular. Also, some things that I do on a regular basis. So I'm hoping that some of this helps you guys and maybe even that it prompts you to start doing some of these things, because if you're not doing them at this time, it definitely can be game-changing for your health. Okay, so first question is, what is the difference between a salt room and a salt bath? Obviously, big differences, but both are just incredibly beneficial. So let's just kind of dive into this. First of all, a salt room is this super unique space where the walls of the room, in most cases, are constructed out of salt blocks. And so there's lighting behind it, and it's these beautiful salt blocks, and they just glow this like amazing light throughout the room. Usually there's benches set up like with like cushions and super comfortable pillows. It's a very comfortable environment, very relaxing, calming environment. And there is a vent that comes out of the ceiling or the wall and the side of the wall, and it has this like machine in the back like that is taking the salt and is blowing the salt into the room. And I mean, it's blowing into the room at a pretty decent pace. You can see across the room, but I mean, you can also see that there's like a cloud of white, in the room as well. So there's a fair amount of salt in the room. Now, what in the world, why does anyone want to do this? Well, so many reasons. I mean, it really, truly is such a relaxing experience. The salt has what's called positive ions in it. That's actually one of the most beneficial parts of the salt. And that will help the immune system, but it will help your nervous system. So when you're in there, those positive ions actually restore you. They just allow for appropriate calm and rest while you're in the salt. And then it actually recharges you. So while you're in it, you're very relaxed and calm. I mean, my mind just empties out, and I'm just very soothed by it. And then when I leave, I feel like I'm like refreshed, almost like someone just like plugged me in and charged me up, and now I'm like ready to take on the day. But yet during it, I could not possibly be in a more relaxed state. In fact, sometimes I will actually take a nap while I'm in there because I just calm down so much. For the most part, I usually just read a book. I try to read 10 pages each day, and so I try to get my 10 pages in while I'm in the salt room. Usually it's about a 25-minute period that you'll be in the salt room, or typically it's going to be 25 to 30 minute period that you'll be in there, and dependent upon the place. And so the other property or the other benefit of the salt room is that the salt is antimicrobial. So what that means is it's like fighting infection, it's fighting bacteria for you. So as you breathe it in through your nose, you might feel some burning, and that just means that it's going to work on those sinus cavities. And then as you breathe it in and it gets down into your lungs, it's doing the same. So it's actually fighting for you. If you have asthma, if you have COPD, if you have, overcoming an infection, maybe you had to deal with COVID, maybe you dealt with bronchitis, or you dealt with pneumonia, something like that. Unbelievable benefits to being in a salt room to recover. So that's something to consider. The other thing is what it can do to your skin. So because of those antimicrobial benefits and because of the positive ions in the salt, when you're in there and it's hitting your skin, it can help to heal eczema. It can help to heal psoriasis. It's good for skin conditions. So there's some of the benefits of the salt room. Again, the breathing benefits, the antimicrobial benefits, how it benefits your lungs, how it benefits your sinus cavity, the skin benefits because of those positive ions, the nervous system benefits to calm you and to soothe you, to recharge you, to restore you. Salt room is game changing. I mean, just absolutely game changing. If you are out in my neck of the woods and you're in the O'Fallon area, right next door to me, literally right directly next door, is a place called Detox Yoga. And they have a gorgeous salt room. So if you're considering going to the salt room, go next door, Detox Yoga. Beautiful salt room. Now, if you're in Clayton, if you're in Ladue, if you're in Frontenac, if you're in, in that kind of vicinity, I typically 5 days a week go to Palm Health. They if you're not a member, they have a guest pass that you can purchase. They even have a salt room pass that you can purchase. For the guest pass, you can do multiple vitality services. So you can, you can go there and do the salt room, and you can do cryo, you can do a biomat, you can do a sauna, a steam room, and there's this combo of items that you can do, so you don't have to just go for the salt room. So if you're out in my neck of the woods, then I would try Detox Yoga for the salt room, or it on the other side of the river, I would trial going to Palm Health for the salt room. Okay, now salt bath. Now there's varying different types of salt baths, okay? So there would be an Epsom salt bath, which is uniquely different from a mineralized sea salt bath. So just be aware of that. So a lot of times if I tell someone that I want them to take a salt bath, I'm actually telling them that I want them to take a mineralized sea salt bath. So when you're searching for that type of salt, it's basically like the Celtic sea salt that you're putting on your food, only they sell a bath version of that. And it's fully mineralized. So you're getting sodium, potassium, calcium, magnesium, chloride. You're getting all of your electrolytes, not just sodium, but also not just magnesium heavy. Epsom salt can be very magnesium heavy. And so for a person like me with low blood pressure, if I do an Epsom salt bath, I feel like I'm going to pass out. And I mean it. Like it brings my blood pressure very low. It's not okay. So I cannot do Epsom salt. Now, Epsom salt is amazing for you. It helps to pull lactic acid out of the body. It is great for muscle contraction and keeping you from getting cramping because of the magnesium. Can even help you to be able to go to the bathroom. So if you don't have low blood pressure, then by all means try to do an Epsom salt bath for recovery on your muscles and just overall for detoxification. But if you do have low blood pressure, don't do an Epsom salt bath because it's just going to bring you too low, okay? Now, everyone will benefit from a mineralized sea salt bath. Now, typically you want to do a minimum of 2 cups of that salt. For if you feel like you're taking on a virus, I mean, you can really feel like, okay, I'm not okay, something is coming on. I can feel something coming on. I would do 3 to 4 cups of salt. Put it in hot water. Don't go too extreme with the hot water, but put it in hot water. You want it to be warm. You just don't want to be sizzling inside that because too much heat isn't necessarily a good thing either, okay? So put it in that water, get in there and soak up to your neck for 20 minutes in a mineralized sea salt bath. If you do that in the morning, add a little bit of citrus oil to it, maybe some orange oil, maybe some lemon oil. It'll invigorate you and it will actually energize you for the rest of the day. If you do that in the evening, maybe throw a little drop of frankincense or maybe a little bit of lavender, and that will help calm your nervous system and really get you prepared for sleep. So it's uniquely different depending upon the type of oil and honestly really just depending upon the type of day that you do. But a mineralized sea salt bath can be game changing. It's like it cleanses the body of just any bad energy and just really replenishes your energy in a great way. It also will help with lactic acid. It helps the body to naturally detox. It is great for you. So both the salt room and the salt bath couldn't be better for you. I mean, both of those are phenomenal options. Both great if you feel like you're taking on a virus, you feel like you're coming down with something. I immediately get into a salt bath. There have been times where I have gotten around someone that's sick, because people come into my office and they're like, yeah, 2 days ago I had bronchitis, or 2 days ago I had COVID, or whatever. And I'm always just sitting behind my desk like, okay. And I just have this little thing that's sitting on my desk that says, no weapon formed against me will prosper. And I just say, no weapon formed against me will prosper. I won't take that sickness on. I just rebuke that from my body. And so I just don't take the sickness on. I refuse to take it on. I have a throat spray that I spray if I get around someone that's sick. And then I have a nasal spray that I spray. And then I'm like, that's it. I'm good. I'm not taking that on. But there was a time where I knew I took something on. It was like I could feel the virus come into my body. And I'm not kidding. I knew it. And I personally have not had a cold or a flu since I think like 2017. I haven't missed work for a cold or a flu. I missed work for a detoxification that came from a cupping event that I did one time with an acupuncturist. And it made me extremely sick, so I had to miss a couple of days work for that. And then I missed work maybe, I think three years ago when I first started to get that swelling, because I got some sort of like stomach situation. But I haven't had bronchitis, I haven't had COVID, I haven't had pneumonia, I haven't had a sinus infection, I haven't had any type of a cold. Knocking on all the wood in the room. And super thankful to God for that. I do, vitamin C IVs. I take a number of different supplements every day, but I haven't had that. But I do really attribute that to the salt room and to the salt baths. But I had a day where I just knew I had a virus coming on. And I did 4 cups of that sea salt, that mineralized sea salt, in a warm bath. And I soaked for 20 minutes. And I mean, I soaked. And I'm telling you, I came out of that bath, and I know it sounds ridiculous, but I was okay. Next day, I was fine. Nothing came on. Now, I drank some bone broth. I drank some celery juice. I took some extra NAC. I took some extra vitamin D. I took some extra vitamin C. I took my zinc. Like, I did all the things. But I truly felt one way going into that bath, and I felt another way coming out of that bath. Same exact way I feel every time I go into the salt room. The other day, there was really bad traffic on the highway. It took me an hour and 15 minutes to get into Clayton. It was like just, one of those days where it was just bad traffic. And I was so upset because I was going to miss that salt room, because I feel so good from it. So I missed the salt room, and I just decided to forego doing one of the mats that they have so I could get myself into another, time slot so I could do the salt room. Came out of that salt room, I'm ready. I mean, I just feel so much different from it. So you don't have to be suffering from respiratory issues, or you don't have to have sinus issues to do a salt room. You don't have to have skin issues to do a salt room. I personally do it because I feel it changes my nervous system, and I feel it recharges me. So, it definitely doesn't have to be, for those other reasons. So that's the difference between the salt room and the salt bath. I hope that helps you guys. And definitely look for some mineralized sea salt. You could definitely find some at Whole Foods. You could find some at O'Fallon Nutrition. You may be able to find some at Fresh Time. I think I have some on my Amazon store. If you're ever wanting to shop my Amazon store, just go to integritytrainingsystems.com. Scroll to the very bottom of the page, and it'll say Shop with Me, and there's a picture of me. Click on that, and it'll take you right to that. Okay, second question is, what's the difference between the benefits of the sauna and a cold plunge? Okay, so this was kind of like all one question, but we broke it into 2 different segments. So sauna is amazing for detoxification. Heat will help to pull out of the body, so it like helps to purge out of the body. Now, that's amazing when you want the body to detox. But if your body is full of toxins, and you're very aware of that, you know that you have a very toxic body, you have a high toxic load, you want to be careful with the amount of sauna and steam heat work that you do, because it could make you very sick. It could release too much toxin into the body. And if the liver is not detoxing efficiently, then you've released, and the lymphatic system is not detoxing efficiently or not moving efficiently, then you've basically moved all these toxins, released all these toxins, and now the liver and the lymphatic system is not able to keep up with the release, and you're going to feel sick. You're going to feel downregulated. You're going to feel like you have the flu, basically. That's what it's going to feel like, because you will have released so many toxins into your system and your body's not able to keep up with it. So that's a negative impact of a sauna and a steam room. Start slow if you're going to do it. Do it for 5 minutes. If you know the body's toxic, if you know you need to release toxins, get in there for 5 minutes. Then the next week, do a 10-minute increment and work your way up very slowly. If you get out of that and you feel very sluggish, you feel dizzy, you feel nauseous, you feel like you've taken on a flu, or like you just almost have a virus, that means that your toxic load is high. So you may even want to take some activated charcoal. You may want to take a binder. I use GI Detox. That's the one that I personally use, just to help bind those toxins and to maybe help better release. But definitely take an electrolyte if you're going to use one, and definitely drink plenty of water. And I mean plenty of water, but do get an electrolyte. You don't want to just flush the body, just take in so many fluids that you end up flushing those electrolytes. So do make sure you take an electrolyte. So the benefits of the sauna is pulling. It's pulling out. It's releasing. Okay. They do have, at Home Health, they do have what's called a biomat. And I love it. I don't use the sauna. I only use the biomat because it is a much gentler way of detoxing the body. It's not so severe, okay? The biomat is a sauna in a mat, and then it's also combined with amethyst crystals to help pull toxins out of the body very naturally. So I do that instead of the sauna. Anytime you're dealing with an autoimmune condition, you want to be very cautious of the amount of detox that, how rapidly you try to detox the body. You also want to be cautious with the amount of heat that you build up in your body. In Chinese medicine, you will assess a person by looking at their tongue. Okay, so we're looking at the outer part of the tongue and we're looking at the inside part of the tongue. You can see by my tongue that I have dampness. That means that I have candida. That you can see that discoloration, that's showing that there's dampness in my body. And I'm taking treatment for that dampness. I take Chinese herbs every day, and then I also take a treatment for candida because I came off of a SIBO treatment, and you have to take antibiotics for a SIBO treatment, so that often prompts candida. So then you would go into that candida treatment. Outer edges of the tongue being red, brighter red or darker red, means that the body's holding too much heat. Okay, red skin would mean that the body's holding too much heat. Red breakouts would mean that the body's holding too much heat. Sometimes a lot of acne would mean that the body's holding too much heat. Extra constipation would mean that the body's holding too much heat. So if you're spending a lot of time in a sauna and you're building all that heat in the body and you have any of those symptoms, even anxiety and high blood pressure is a sign of too much heat in the body, or irritability is a sign of too much heat in the body. So if you're spending all that time in the heat, in the sauna, and you're dealing with all those symptoms, that's a sign and signal that you're building too much heat in the body. So you wanna partner that with some cold. So maybe you would do cryotherapy, maybe you would do a cold plunge, or maybe you need to have more foods that are not so heat building, maybe more cooling foods like salads or fruit. so that you can cool the body down. Anytime you're having spicy foods, you're also building heat in the body. Beef will build heat in the body. Now, there's a good balance. It doesn't make this bad. There's just a balance. But if you go in excess with something, then it's going to cause an issue. So too much sauna time, you're building too much heat. You combine that with too much spicy food, too much beef, all the things that I just told you about, then you're going to end up having too much heat in the body. If you're struggling with sleeping and you wake up several times a night, you may have too much heat in the body. That might be your body's way of trying to tell you have too much heat. You may be eating too many onions at night, too many peppers at night, too much spice at night. Maybe you should have beef at lunchtime instead of beef at dinner. It can impact the way you sleep and the amount of heat that the body holds. So I'd just be cautious with sauna. Utilize the sauna as a detox, but just make sure that your liver and your lymphatic system is supported for that detox. So you may need to be taking some supplements for that. I know there's a lot of information involved with all this. And some of it can just be a little bit high level that, you really need someone kind of managing it for you. Sometimes it's not something that you necessarily want to try to manage on your own, okay? So ultimately, the cold plunge is extremely beneficial for the mitochondria. It is a cellular rebuild. It is an anti-aging exercise, basically. I mean, there is longevity in cold plunge. There's longevity in cryo. It has an anti-inflammatory benefit, primarily just because of that cellular benefit. It is boosting energy in your mitochondria. Your mitochondria is what determines if you're aging or if you're not aging. Mitochondrial decline means aging, basically. Okay, so when our cells start to get tired, we're aging, all right? And we start to look like we're aging as our cells start to get tired, okay? I can look back at pictures of myself 10 years ago, and I've always worked a lot. I've always worked a lot, but there was definitely a point in my life where I worked 7 days a week before I met John. And I did not take vacations. I did not take days off. I had 5 different gyms that I managed that my company was in. And I worked 7 days a week. And I woke up at 3:30 in the morning, five of those days, sometimes 6. So when I look back at those pictures, I actually feel like I look like then the age that I am now. Because I was declining. Because I was not taking care of myself as well as I am now. Okay, so I still work a ton, but I don't work 7 days a week. I definitely take Sundays off because you have to have a day off. You need a day of rest. And I also take Tuesdays where I take care of myself. I do the salt room. I do the cold plunge. I do the cryotherapy. I do the biomat. I do all these things to take care of myself, and then I do them on other days as well. So the cold plunge is a cellular rebuild. There's longevity in it. Whether you get into a cryo machine or you get into a cold bath or an ice bath, that is incredible for you. Now, it also has the ability to metabolically make you more efficient. You are actually burning calories. So it's thermogenic. It's like a fat burner. One time I did cryo twice in a day because my doctor recommended that for me in the beginning when I first started it. And I got to a point where I started exercising 2 hours a day, and I did cryo 2 times that day. And I ended up with a pretty low blood sugar by the end of the day because I had burned so much. I burned through basically everything I ate that day and just not recognizing how much that cryo was actually burning. So it's there's a thermogenic benefit to it as well. There's fat burning, that goes on when you're doing that cryo or when you're doing that cold plunge as well. Then there's just anti-inflammatory benefits. I've told this story many times, but, basically, a year and a half ago, there was something seriously going wrong with my body, and no one could figure it out. None of the doctors I went to, all tried very hard, all wonderful people, but they could not figure out what was going on with me. And I was 25 pounds heavier and swollen everywhere. My food had not changed. My exercise basically had to dwindle down to nothing because I felt so bad all the time. And ultimately, I never got a diagnosis. I've never able to determine why I was so swollen and why that happened. But I had a friend suggest that I go to the salt room at Palm Health, and I did. I bought a day pass, but you get 2 other services. So I coupled the PEMF mat for my lymphatic system, and I coupled the cryo. And when I got out of the cryo machine, I could tell that the swelling had gone down in my body. You're in there for 3 minutes. And I know that sounds hokey, and I know you're like, there's just no way. But I'm telling you right now, I got out of that cryo machine. I had spent the past 6 months of my life feeling no breakthrough whatsoever. And I walked out and I knew I had just experienced breakthrough. And on the way home, when I drove home from Palm, my mind was more clear. I could just focus. And so the next day was my birthday. So I asked the people at the front desk if I could come back the next day, and they said, yes, you can come every day for this. And so I asked John if he would bring me to Palm the next day, and he was like, well, you just went. And I said, I know, but it changed me. Something's going on that it's helped me. So he was like, absolutely, that's where we'll spend your birthday. So I went back the next day, did the salt room, did the biomat this time, and the PEMF mat, and I did cryo. Same exact thing happened. I felt different. I felt less swollen. I could tell something had shifted in my body, like something had changed. So at the end of those services, I went to the front desk and I bought a month's membership there. And I just said, I'm going to do this. So in the 2-week period of time, I did it 4 times 1 week, 4 times the next week. I know it's not going to seem like it's possible, but I lost 20 pounds. I lost 20 pounds in a 2-week period of time. I had sat there with that 20 pounds for 6 months after I'd had the stomach infection, having no understanding of what happened in my body, why I became so swollen, why it kept getting worse. None of the tests were showing dramatic reasons why I would be that inflamed. And it was the cryo, biomat, PEMF mat, and salt room that basically changed everything. Well, since then, it was a year in May. That was my 1-year anniversary of going there 5 days a week. I do that rotation, and it has changed me. And cryotherapy is game changing. When we go to Florida, we usually try to go to Florida 2 to 3 times a year. I bring my biomat, I bring my PEMF mat with me, but in Florida, we always get a house that has a big bathtub. And so I run the cold water in the bathtub, I go down into the freezer and I take the whole bucket of ice and I pour the bucket of ice in there. And then I start my day after I've taken my walk, after I've taken my bike ride, I start my day sitting in that bathtub. I just sit in it for 5 minutes because I figure it's probably not 55 degrees. It's probably a little bit more than that, but it's cold. And so you trust me, I'm freezing in it. But I do that. And it's game changing between doing that and then doing that biomat so that I have the sauna impact or the heat, and then I have the PEMF mat as well. I don't feel like I'm losing any of what I've gained from going to Palm and using all those services. Now I get the salt benefit because I'm going to the beach, so it's kind of the same concept. So cryotherapy, cold therapy, cold plunging, life-changing. Absolutely life-changing. So be very cautious on the sauna end. I would definitely consider a biomat. If you're considering purchasing one, maybe visit Palm, do a day pass, see how you feel on it before you spend the money on one. I feel great on it. I think it naturally detoxes. It doesn't force a detoxification. If you are going to use a sauna, make sure you're taking electrolyte. Make sure you're drinking plenty of water, okay? Now, the third question is, what is small intestinal bacterial overgrowth, short for SIBO? It is just a horrible thing. It is just such a common thing, though. More people are walking around with SIBO and have absolutely no idea because they're not being checked for it. So they're just dealing with the symptoms. It is an overgrowth of bacteria in the small intestine, okay? So not in the large intestine, but in the small intestine. So what happens is as you bring your food down, the body either doesn't have enough stomach acid or it doesn't have enough enzymes to start breaking down your food. And so what happens is a lot of that food doesn't get broken down the way it should, sits there and ferments in that small intestine and ultimately creates gas, okay? That gas is either methane gas, hydrogen gas, or hydrogen sulfate, or you can actually have methane and hydrogen gas, okay? You can create both. And that gas grows in that small intestine and it enlarges your stomach and it will cause excessive bloating. And yes, you may pass gas, but it's not so much that you're passing gas. It's just that the gas is growing and making your stomach feel like you've swallowed like a bowling ball. It is hard and miserably uncomfortable. When I dealt with SIBO, which I dealt with SIBO at the beginning of the year, it's interesting because I dropped all that inflammation. And my doctor suggested that I start to diversify my food and really start to trial some new things. And so I had 2 days. That's it, just 2 days. I ate quinoa 2 times each day. I made a cookie with almond flour and maple syrup and applesauce and put some cinnamon and put some pecans in there. I didn't even use chocolate chips. And I did that 2 days, a cookie this day and a cookie that day. And that Monday, my stomach was huge. It was just absolutely huge. I don't even know how to explain it. Like my pants, if they had to be buttoned, wouldn't have buttoned. It was so swollen. And so it scared me to death. And I'm like, oh my gosh, what just happened? I'm smart enough to know that I definitely probably ended up with some SIBO because it just ultimately was that swollen. Like I just knew that that's what had happened. And so I ended up having to go through a SIBO treatment. And it was SIBO. It was a breath test. Now, what was interesting was I had food poisoning at the beginning of the year, okay? And so at the beginning of the year, on Christmas Eve, I ended up with food poisoning. And I ended up so sick on Christmas Eve. And so I think that those antibodies remained sort of dormant in my body. And then when I threw in those carbs and I threw in those sugars, it was like, thank you. And it just started growing. And that was only 2 days of eating those foods. So that's pretty crazy. So I ended up having to go on Xifaxan and metronidazole, and I had to do that for a 2-month period of time. I would have to take a binder each day an hour after, which was the GI detox. And it took probably, and then I had to go on herbals after that for 2 months. It took probably 4 months before my stomach started to feel like it didn't have a bowling ball in it. Still to this day, when I eat fruit, this part of my belly will be more swollen. And I can feel the gas build in the small intestine. So I don't really eat a lot of fruit because of that. Because I just don't think it's completely gone. Now there is a test called IBS Smart. And you can go out online and type in IBSSmart.com. And it will tell you, it will send you a packet. And that packet will be for a blood test. And you can take that to your doctor. And that will test you for 2 antibodies. And if you're positive for those IBS or IBD antibodies, that means that you have had Campyloribacter, Salmonella, botulism, and or E. coli. Okay, I tested positive for both of those antibodies. So, you know, anything's possible. I mean, you just don't know. I mean, we went out to dinner. I had a steak at a restaurant on New Year's Eve, and I was ill by the time we got home, and I was ill the whole next day. So you just don't know if you still have those antibodies running around in your body. And so when I brought that starch in, that prompted that SIBO, small intestinal bacteria overgrowth. You need a breath test to determine that. Now, some stool tests will show if you have bacteria, but a lot of doctors don't buy into the stool test, only the breath test, okay? So the breath test, you will drink a drink that will either be sugar packed or lactose packed. And then every 5 to 20 minutes, you're going to blow into a bag or blow into a tube. Either way, there's 2 different tests. And one is one you can do at home, and one's one that you do at the doctor. And then they start testing you. And then they start to see, is your body producing the gas? And if it's producing the gas, is it methane, is it hydrogen, or is it hydrogen sulfate, or is it both? Okay. Then we know how you need to be treated. A low FODMAP diet will be very helpful during this time, but the treatment is necessary. Yes, there are herbals, but like most of the time, the antibiotic is going to be your most effective route, and then the herbals, okay? So you want to be with a really good doctor for this. Most of the time, you want to be with a functional medicine doctor for this, because it is oftentimes never even tested. There are people that come in for bloating, they come in for distension. My daughter was 9 before someone identified it, and the only person that identified it was the functional medicine doctor that we hired. Her pediatrician never once tested her for that. And when we tested her for it, she was positive for SIBO, she was positive for parasites, and she was positive for candida. So she was 9. Okay, so that is really an issue. Okay, for someone to for you to have a child that she had swelling and bloating since she was 2, and no one tested her for that. And it wasn't until I spent thousands of dollars on stuff, treatments and medicines and tests and stool tests and breath tests and all these different tests that we finally got answers. So that's pretty sad. Now for myself, I knew enough to know what's happening right now. When I eat, I can feel it growing. I knew I had SIBO. And so, I basically told my doctor, I know this is SIBO. And then when she saw that IBS and IBD test, and then when he saw it, they were both like, yes, you need the Xifaxan and you need the metronidazole. So I had to do both. And I just finished 2 months of herbals. Usually the herbals are a combination of berberine, oregano, and garlic. And then there's other combinations that are part of that as well. You really want to have someone working with you on this. Then a low FODMAP diet will be very helpful as well, and that's certainly something that I can help you with as well. So definitely more people dealing with that than I think that they're even aware of. So if you're dealing with that swelling, that excessive bloating, excessive abdominal distension, you literally look like you're pregnant, you really need to have that breath test and get checked for SIBO, and also look up that IBS SMART test as well. So I hope that helps you guys. This is a much longer one than I usually do, but I just felt like it was good information. We really needed to expand on all that. So I really hope that benefited you guys. Again, remember, Salt Room on this side of the river, Detox Yoga. Salt Room on that side of the river, Palm Health. If you'd like to visit Palm Health for the cryotherapy, that would be a fantastic place to do the cryotherapy, also the mat therapy. In addition to, if you wanted to use a sauna, they do have a day pass, and it's palmhealth.com. Hope that helps you guys. Thank you so much. God bless.